Kevin McCarthy trying to justify why they led a vote against Ilhan Omar. Now, remember, the Democrats led a vote, and I don't think it was along party lines. I mean, I think there was some Republicans who voted with the Democrats, if I'm not mistaken, when they voted to get rid of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar, right? I mean,
I'll double check that. I think you're right. It was party line for Omar, unfortunately.
For Omar, it was party line. But let's listen to Kevin McCarthy. There are some who have you believe that there was a precedent set when the Democrats led a vote to keep Gosar and Marjorie Taylor Greene off of their committee seats. To be clear, the reason why they voted on that was because both Gosar and Marjorie Taylor Greene actively threatened
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Nancy Pelosi,
other members of Congress in their ads, like with physical harm. And particularly in the wake of January 6th, there was an idea of like, maybe we should just keep our politics, at the very least, within the parameters of bad faith, bunch of lies, bigotry, et cetera, not actual physical harm. And, but McCarthy wants to make it like this was just, the precedent was set.
They can't even be on committees. This is nothing like the last Congress where they would deny the rights for bills to even go through committee. This is nothing like the last Congress where you never had an open rule. So let's just judge the few weeks we've had now to the last Congress. This is the first time in 7 years any bill has come to the floor in an open rule. Almost a decade since that has come to a bill has come to the floor that's not an appropriation bill. Look at what we've also done the first week in a bipartisan way. 146 Democrats joined with us where we opened a select committee on China. This is actually a fundamentally different Congress. I've had Democrats coming up to me telling me we're running it much better, especially the time allotment. They like the openness and the working. I'll give you another example for an inner workings, right? There's times that I was going to be given a briefing. I call up the minority leader, take the briefing with me. Because there's ways that I look at the way we were treated in the past I don't think was right. And I'm glad you asked this question because this is a much different Congress, much more. Now the public can actually be here. You can be here. How different is that? The public is going to be back in the People's House. We're going to have a State of the Union where the public can actually watch it. So, yeah, I'm really excited how this is so different than the last Congress.
Pause it for 1 second.
Well, wasn't that COVID?
I'm trying to think of what reasons why people weren't gathering so much and the public wasn't there.
It's the Democrats. They hate the people.
Is he go on and try and justify the vote, or he's just...
There's more.
This is McCarthy just basically, though, trying to say, look, the Congress is much better now. The process is much better. Here he is trying to justify the vote.
She said the American military was equal to Hamas and to Taliban from a member of the Foreign Affairs. She said Americans only like Israel because it's all about the Benjamins. And 3 years later, she said, I didn't know there's a trope when it comes to referring to someone who's Jewish with money. She said on 9/11, as a member of Congress, as an individual who's sitting on Foreign Affairs, something happened that day. What does that say to other people around the world? What does that say to somebody else who wants to create another 9/11 America? I'm sorry. What? It's not right. We were right in our action, and she can serve on other committees. But it puts America in jeopardy, and I'm not going to do that under my watch. And it's fair in the process, unlike them.
All right. First off, I want to be clear. Her comments about the money that goes into the lobbying effort by AIPAC were almost identical. I think she said Benjamins instead of money, to comments that Thomas Friedman has made about the Israel lobby. Thomas Friedman, not known as a non-supporter of Israel by any stretch, certainly not known as an anti-Semite by the conventional wisdom, made the exact same point, that the Israeli lobby has influenced the conversation in this country. That is what she was talking about. There were far more of her Jewish colleagues that stood up in support of her over the past week or two.
Yeah.
That said a similar thing. The idea that she was endangering the United States. She's been sitting on the Foreign Relations Committee for, what is it now? 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
Somehow America's still standing.
Well, she is endangering certain people. I mean, we went through this yesterday, and there's a great piece by Peter Beinart in the New York Times opinion section that details this. But she was questioning Elliott Abrams aggressively. She was bringing up United States intervention in Latin American elections, in the upholding of Pinochet, in our current relationship with the fascist far right Narendra Modi, despite his persecution of Muslims in India. Like, that is the threat that they're talking about.
Well, I would argue that the threat that he's talking about is one implying that to have a Muslim person sitting on, supposedly privy to our foreign relations secrets, or at the very least formulating our policy, this is birtherism.
Yes.
It is the same exact impetus there. It's just not as in style right now, because it'd be far more effective for them if she was a trans a woman, and they could sort of fit it into their narrative. But they always have that in reserve.
Oh, the
That's
Islamophobia?
Yes.
Yeah. And the fact that she asked those questions, though, is informed by the fact that she was Muslim and born in another country and was a refugee. Like, it's all a part of what makes her so threatening to them. And you also see, I think what this is designed to do is also dilute the political power of Democrats to use January 6th against certain Republicans, because when he talks about how they didn't follow the process when they kept Marjorie Taylor Greene and Gosar off those committees, and he both sides it and says, so we had to do the same to Ilhan Omar. It makes it seem like there's extremes on both sides, as opposed to the fact that, no, those guys are batshit crazy insurrectionists, and there's no equivalence with Ilhan Omar.
And what was the vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar?
When was it?
No. What was the vote? Weren't you just looking that up? Well, the bottom line is that the arguments that we hear that this is and look, what was it?
It was 230-199 with 11 Republicans voting with Democrats to move her from the committee.
So by all rules of reporting that we see, this was a bipartisan vote. I mean, that is the annoying tick of our mainstream media is that all it takes is one Republican to vote, but obviously far more, and then a bunch abstained, right? Because there's more than 99 Republicans in that Congress. And so you're talking about the abstentions of maybe 100? Like so the difference is that this is purely partisan. The idea that it's not driven by some measure of like, we can get away with this because there's always within American politics, always room for the Republican Party to exploit racism and misogyny. That's what's going on here. And then you find some usual suspects running interference for this, and some maybe not so usual to get involved in something this naked, but that's basically it. And the argument is to the American public, there's a vote. It's a perfectly legitimate vote, to actually happen. It's just that this is the Republican Party, and they're going to get value out of, like, we're keeping the Muslim off of the Foreign Relations Committee. That's what this is about. Make no mistake about it.